My man, Gordon Ryan. Nice to meet you. How are you?
You too. How's everything?
I'll see. Good, good. I heard the traffic was a nightmare.
Always in New York.
Yeah, they put you in an Uber, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
That was the big mistake.
Yeah.
It's always faster on the subway.
It is. But it's more fun in an Uber. So.
It is more fun in an Uber. I see you got your whole crew here.
Yeah.
They go with you everywhere?
UFC Fight Pass.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
I thought that you guys would be like aware that we were coming with them because Victor from Combat Jiu-Jitsu Fight Night, he's like, oh, UFC wants you to do the MMA Hour for the Combat Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. So I just assumed that you guys knew that these guys were coming.
We did not. They did not give me a list of the names. But we got you in, so you're all here.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
You know what's amazing? I've been following you on social media for the last week. Wow.
Yep, it's been interesting.
You got a shitload of beefs, man.
Oh, yeah. It's been fun.
So let me set the table here, if I can. We'll talk about the Combat Jiu-Jitsu thing in just a minute. I just plugged the hell out of it, so they'll be fine. You had a career where you initially developed a name in EBI.
Yes.
I will tell you candidly, I pay more attention to the IBJJF tournaments. I don't make it. I'm not telling you that's the best thing to do.
I won a few of those, so it's okay.
No, we'll get to that. So the EBI guys I thought were good, but I think you would agree generally the better A-class competitors are typically in ADCC and IBJJF.
Yes.
All right. So then I saw you in ADCC and my eyes went like that. I was like, holy shit, he might be the real deal Holyfield. Then you did what you did at Quintet, where you submitted Josh Barnett fast. And then you won the No-Gi Worlds. I think you got double gold there, right?
Yeah.
So let's just sort of state it outright. You're the best No-Gi grappler on the planet, right?
Yes.
Right? Why is there so much consternation in the jiu-jitsu community about this?
Because I'm not Brazilian.
That's the whole thing?
If I was Brazilian, I'd be like a god. But I'm just like some white dude who everybody hates, so.
Well, explain to me how that works. Like, how do you know that's the reason? Because you are a little bit antagonistic.
Oh, yeah, definitely antagonize people because, like, the biggest thing for me was when I won EBI. Like, that's when people started talking shit. Like, if Yuri wasn't hurt, he would have beat you. And I felt like I was like a new guy who came up, and I really felt like I really earned that. Like, I really earned that win. And everyone was like, "Oh, Yuri was just hurt. If he was fresh, he would have beat Gordon."
Yuri Samois?
Yeah, and I'm like, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, we both had 2 matches. Like, I finished my matches early. He went to overtime. It's not my fault, and I really felt like offended by that. So I was like, like, people are gonna talk shit no matter what. You may as well just say what you want, and some people will love you, some people will hate you. So I definitely antagonize people, but for so long, also the sport's been dominated by Brazilians that, like, I feel like some of them can't handle, like,
an American doing well?
Not even just an American, just a non-Brazilian coming up and dominating people the way that I am.
Do you get, like, messages to this effect? Like, oh, F you gringo or something like that?
No, but most of the people who do attack me are Brazilian. I mean, I have people who love me who are Brazilian as well, but I feel like the majority of the people who will hate on me are Brazilians. Is
the argument that it's cultural?
I don't really know what it is, because the Brazilians dominated the sport for so long. Everyone came from Brazil, and they started, they started jiu-jitsu in America. I don't know if it's just that they think that like people who aren't Brazilian should be good at jiu-jitsu. I don't know what it is, but I think everyone thinks like America, like nationalists, like think that America's the greatest. I think it's like Brazil is the same way with jiu-jitsu. Like Brazilians think that Brazilians should be very good at jiu-jitsu.
Right, I see. So then here you come along, not really making apologies for who you are.
Yes.
And they just sort of can't handle it?
I think so. And everyone has like this fake idea built around jiu-jitsu should be based around, being humble and respectful, but that's not what jiu-jitsu is created on at all. Like the Gracies used to just beat up people just to prove that jiu-jitsu was a better martial art in Brazil.
Hell, they're still doing it, right?
Yeah, I know.
Health?
So I mean, I don't know what, like, people have this fake idea where they think that you should be like humble and respectful, but that's not always the case.
I would like to push back on that just a little bit, if I may.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of jiu-jitsu as I understand it, that is true. I think there used to be what called the Jujubre boys, who were like, they were all sort of, they were rich people, but they were thugs, essentially, fucking people up left and right. But for example, if you look at Muay Thai, they took it from what it was and they made it sort of like a strip mall martial art here. I'm not to demean it, but I'm saying it's accessible to a wide population.
Yes.
The fact that it was a way for incredibly poor people to make money in Thailand doesn't make this experience as a sort of mom and pop martial art less authentic. So I think you're right in terms of that's how it was in Brazil. But I can sort of see people are trying to get moms and accountants and, not everyone has a Gordon Ryan. They're trying to get donks like me to come through the door.
Yeah, of course.
So they're doing the whole bow on the mat thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and that's what they have to do. If you're running a business, you can't be talking shit to the little 6-year-old kid who's like trying to do a bridge and shrimp. You have to be, the athlete side of you has to be different than the business side of you, of course.
Yeah. Now, when did all this start? Because I remember you started out doing like challenge matches.
Yes.
The one I remembered wasn't because you're a Gary Tonin black belt, right?
Gary Tonin and John Danaher, yeah.
It was a thing?
It was both, yeah.
BJJ Heroes has it as just Gary. So, all right, fair enough. But in any event, I remember the first time I saw it, you did a no time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you did a no-gi, no time limit with Keenan.
Yes.
And you won that one.
Yeah, that wasn't a bet match, but that was just a no time limit match.
When did the bet matches start?
So the bet matches started, my first bet match was Todd Muckenheim, because Todd Muckenheim is just like some guy who trains, I think, somewhere in New York, and he beat me in a grappling industries when I first got my black belt. It was like a 5-minute match, and the points were 0-0, and I felt like I was attacking him the whole time.
By the way, how old were you when you got your black belt?
20.
And you started when you were 15?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So I felt like I was attacking the whole time, and the ref was like from his team, so they gave him the win at the end. It was 0-0, and he got the win. So then I beat Keenan, and like he made a post about how he beat me and how he wants a rematch. So I'm like, man, this was like, over a year ago. I'm like, if you want to have a bet match, if you want to like compete, let's have a bet match. Let's like, you put up $10,000, I'll put up $10,000, and then we'll compete. So he was like, okay. So he managed to put up $10,000. I got my $10,000 and we competed. And then when I beat him, I took his $10,000 and I went home.
Were you worried that you wouldn't be able to secure the bag? Like, who handled that part?
No, it was, I think David Aguzzi, from Grappling Industries, actually had all the money, because the event was supposed to happen at his, the match was supposed to happen at his event at first, but then something happened and fell through. So it happened in Florida instead. But I think David already had the money, so David just distributed it to me once the match was over.
When did you start making good money doing that? 10 grand is a nice piece of change, but that's not. You're talking with Galvao now about $300K and $250K.
Yeah, it goes up pretty exponentially each year. But over $100,000 I made 2016. Like the EBI was like the Kickstarter. So it's like good money. It's like bittersweet, because you make more than the average person at 22, 23 years old. But like compared to a real pro athlete, it's still peanuts. Right. Like compared to like an NFL player or something like that. But good money right from the beginning. 2016, after I won EBI, and I really started getting my name out there.
Well, you talk about peanuts, bro. I mean, I'm 39. A good buddy of mine is Seth Smith. He's a Ryan Hall black belt, so I know guys from that era. And
there was no money back then.
Right. So the only way to make money was to get enough wins on the IBJJF circuit or Grappler's Quest so you could open up a school.
Yeah, exactly.
That was really the only way to do it. Now, so do you think you've like opened the door to other people?
I think so. I mean, I'm really trying to turn grappling into a spectator sport. The whole thing
Is that possible?
Well, that's the issue. The whole thing is 95% of the people who watch grappling events actually do grapple. They participate in the sport. Right. Versus if you look at like 95% of people who watch NBA or NFL, they don't participate in the sport. So the whole thing is, how can we make grappling into a spectator sport by breaking that barrier of getting people from outside the sport to actually watch jiu-jitsu events?
And what's the formula?
I mean, Eddie Bravo had it really good with EBI. He changed it to combat jiu-jitsu, and that seems to be working. People seem to like that. But as far as I know, like the EBI 10 in Mexico with Gio and Eddie in the finals, I think that was the highest pay-per-view. That had more views than like pretty much all the UFCs that year. So that started to pick up a lot with EBI, and then he changed it to combat jiu-jitsu. So I don't know, maybe he knows something that we don't, and it's going to blow up with combat jiu-jitsu. But EBI was a great way to get people who weren't grapplers to watch it, because it was exciting, and he was very smart. He had low-level guys in the beginning, so you had really exciting matches because there was mismatches. There's essentially two good guys on each side of the bracket.
It was like Strike Force.
Yeah, exactly. So one guy has like really exciting matches, and there's a lot of submissions in the beginning, and then you basically just have two guys who sometimes negate each other in the finals, and then it goes to overtime. Right. But all their matches going up to that are really exciting because there's a lot of mismatches.
Well, if you watch, I don't need to tell you this, but for the audience who may not know, like if you watch the black belt finals, let's say in the gi, for IBJJF,
you fall asleep watching it most of the time.
First of all, do you agree with there should be tech falls? You got the Meow brothers going up 46. You had a guy, I think it was your first match, right?
47-0.
47. Dude, there should be tech falls at some point, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the thing was, with jiu-jitsu, there's always a chance of a submission, so that's the issue.
Is there? Did that guy have a chance? Really?
Yeah, I agree. That's why I think they don't have tech falls, because there is always a chance that a guy could get a submission at the end. Yeah. But yeah, I agree that something should be done about that.
Still, if at some point, 47 to whatever it was is just absurd. But the issue is you get these leg entanglements, and it's just a series of gripping challenges that unless you're highly experienced, it's impossible to follow.
Yeah, well, there's no heel hooks is the issue. Like, you have an IBJJF match.
There's toe holds.
Yeah, there's toe holds, but from 50-50 is the main stalling position. And with no heel hooks, there's no real leg locks that you can do from there that are effective. Like the only thing you really have from 50-50 is like a knee bar if you spin, which it really isn't 50-50 anymore,
right,
or a cross Achilles lock, which is like pretty much not effective at the highest levels.
Why have you given up? Well, not given up. I saw you in the gi on one of Keenan's posts not too long ago, but you have really focused on no gi. Why?
Coming up for me, like no gi was just always the thing that my training partners were doing. Like Gary was always focused on no gi, Eddie was always focused on no gi, and I didn't really have like training partners with the same goals as me in the gi. Like Gary and Eddie were very competitive, and none of John's students have been competitive in the gi. So I felt like I always just was, I kind of just gravitated towards no gi because of Gary and Eddie were just guys that I looked up to, and they were winning at high levels before I was. So I always just gravitated towards no gi because, you know, my coach Gary and the high level guys in the team that were competing at the time were all no gi guys.
Do you have plans to ratchet that up? Sort of.
I spent a year really trying to get good in the gi, and I thought that I just hated it because till I sucked at it. Like I would train the first day in the gi, and like a blue belt would make a grip and like stop my whole sequence and move. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? I'm so terrible at this. But then after like 10 months or so, I started getting to a relatively high level. I trained with, you know, black belt world champions, world level guys, and I didn't beat them up per se, but I definitely held my own against them. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that not that I'm terrible in the gi. I feel like I could do really well against high level guys right now. It's just something that I don't enjoy as much as MMA training. So I think that I'm just going to start fighting MMA because I just enjoy the training of MMA more than I enjoy gi training. And the gi training has no relevance to MMA at all.
Yeah, see, here's what you do. You came along and you're like, here's how everyone does things. Here's everyone's belief system behind that. And you just gave it the big old middle finger. And then on top of that, you did really well. Like they couldn't take it away from you. It's one thing for someone to be like, oh, the gi has no relevance to no gi. But then if you lose, no one cares. But you won everything.
Yeah.
So now they're sort of forced to listen to you.
Well, that's the thing is, in the early days, in like 2004 ADCC, of course everyone that trains in the gi is winning in no gi. Because you have guys that train solely in the gi, and then they take off the gi and they just fight no gi. But then you have someone like a no-gi specialist like me or Dean Lister who goes in and they beat a lot of these guys because they specialize in no-gi versus just having guys who all train in the gi 100% of the time and then move to no-gi. It's just like if everyone trained no-gi and then moved to the gi, it would be the same thing, just the opposite side of it.
Fair enough. I will say Joe Lazan made a point once. This is, for what you're talking about, I think what you're saying is true. Joe Lazan made a point to me once. I was like, does gi training help you at all with MMA? And his answer was a little bit. So for example, he had a bad omoplata, but he found himself in that kind of position all the time. So he got good at the omoplata from the gi, and because it's slow, you can't just, he used that to transition over into a no-gi omoplata. So sort of like training wheels.
Yeah.
So do you buy that as a legitimate way to get better?
I mean, not really, because like you should practice for what you're doing. Like if his omoplata wasn't good without the gi, it's not because he needed more friction to do it. It's because his mechanics were off. If he would have just cleaned up his mechanics to be able to hold him in place without the gi, he would have just stepped that whole process. He would have progressed much faster if he focused on the mechanics without the gi versus using the gi to handicap the other guy and then try to get better like that. The process would have been a lot shorter if he just cleaned the mechanics up versus trying to do it in the gi and then move back to no gi.
Here's a question for you. If you had never met Gary and you had never met John Danaher, would you be this good?
Absolutely not.
So
not even close.
So can you explain like how central that has been to your growth and experience?
Yeah. So Gary was a big part of my development.
Did you start with him in New Jersey?
I didn't start with him. I started with another Ricardo Almeida brown belt who owned Brunswick BJJ, which is now Gary's school.
Okay.
But Miguel Benitez, a blue belt at the time, was my coach for 2 years. He got his blue belt and then purple belt and then brown and then so on. I met Gary when I was a 4-stripe white belt, and then Gary ended up taking over the school as head instructor when I was a 2 or 3 stripe blue belt. So then I got my purple belt under Gary, and then I graduated high school. I worked full-time, 40 hours a week, just like throwing grass bags in the back of a garbage truck and training at nighttime. And then when I finally had some money saved up, then I started training consistently under John at purple belt. And ever since then, I've pretty much been, Gary's always my instructor, always helping me at nighttime and, going over things with me. But like the core teacher for all of us has been John.
And so when did you start linking up with John? You're 23?
23, yeah.
When did you link up with John?
I was a purple belt, so 18, 19,
Wow,
yeah.
solid 5 years then.
Yeah.
How instrumental has that been? Like, can you give me some kind of explanation for?
I would say that
Would you be a world champ if it wasn't for him?
I would say that 10% of my success comes from me showing up and my innovations, and 90% of the success comes from what he showed us.
Wow, that much, huh?
Yeah. And most people just thank their coaches because they feel like it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Like I'm not exaggerating, like 90% of the things that you see me do is because of John.
When did you have the eureka moment with him? Like, when did you meet him and you were like, oh my God, this is...
So that's the problem is like you don't really know how good people are because like you're just like a dumb blue belt. So like this black belt beats you up just as bad as this guy teaches this, and everyone's so much better than you that you can't really scale how good guys are. So I met John and I was just like, because he had never rolled because his hip was so bad. So I was like, this guy seems kind of smart. And like Gary likes him, he trusts him, so I'm gonna start learning from this guy. But I had no idea how good he actually was. It wasn't until like really late purple belt and brown belt where everything he taught me started to make sense. Purple belt, I started training consistently underneath him, and then brown belt was when I started beating everybody. All the things that he was teaching started to click together into systems, and I started just killing people from like purple belt, like late purple belt into brown belt, and then I kind of just rose from there.
That's when they had the Gordon Ryan challenge. They were talking about it. I live in D.C. They were talking about that in D.C. They were like, hey, we're going to send guys up to go do the Gordon Ryan challenge. That was at the time when you were like, I think you were either late brown, early black, somewhere in there. And this was the time where like Gary was pimping you out, like my student will beat all y'all.
Yep, yeah.
I remember that.
I remember I got into like an internet battle with Robert Drysdale at like purple or brown belt.
Did you really?
Yeah, and
you've been doing this for a long time.
About like he probably doesn't even remember this. He probably is gonna laugh when he sees this. But I got into like a 2-day long debate with Robert Drysdale, and then Gary like tried to like get us to have a no time limit match, and like Robert's like, no, like who the fuck has this purple belt? But yeah, I had like a long debate about like how IBJJF rules like weren't the best rule set, and me and like Robert got into some big argument about it.
That's amazing. Let's talk about this tournament you're going to be in here, right? Yes. Did you hear what Fabricio said in the Brazilian media about it?
Not the Brazilian media. I just saw that he said, I better make sure I have health insurance.
Well, there's that. First of all, do you? You must have health insurance.
My parents have health insurance. I'm on their health insurance. So
God
until 26, I have health insurance.
God bless the rents. He said he's going to win via KO from the slap.
Yeah, there's literally no chance of that happening.
All right, so let's talk about Fabricio for just a second. Forget all the USADA stuff and why he's on suspension. Let's just talk about him as a grappler. He high-level one for his era, certainly.
Yeah.
World
two-time
champion.
ADCC champion, two-time black belt world champion, two-time ADCC champion, or two-time UFC champion.
He's a real deal Holyfield,
yes,
man.
Of course.
When you size him up beyond just the accolades, what do you see?
He's very big. He's very long. He has a distinct weight advantage and height advantage. He's 2 or 3 inches taller than me, and probably 40 pounds heavier than me. I'm walking around like 210, 215. He's like usually 245, 250. That's when he's fighting, so he's probably a little heavier than that now. And he's one of the best of all time in grappling and MMA. He has a case to be one of the best grapplers of all time, one of the best fighters of all time. He's highly accomplished.
By the way, you should know in MMA, I had to debate with these idiots who were telling me that as a black belt in jiu-jitsu, Nogueira was better than Fabricio Werdum.
No.
Yeah, no. And by the way, he got submitted by him too, so there's that. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But as far as like the strikes go, you can definitely do damage with open hand strikes, but on the ground, there's a lot less ability to create a lot of kinetic energy. So most of the striking that does damage on the ground is punches and elbows. So open hand slaps are kind of more an annoyance. I don't really the chances of getting knocked unconscious with them or getting hit so hard that you don't really know what's going on and you get dazed are very low.
The rule is you can't slap if we're standing, right?
Yeah.
You can collar tie club, I guess, but you can't slap. It's only once both people are down?
It's once one guy has a knee, I believe, or a butt down. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the rule. Okay. So one guy could be standing, one guy could drop to a knee or sit to guard, and he can start.
So he can still be standing, but he'd have to be like hunched over,
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's going to be easier for me to enter into attacks on him if he does open up and bring his limbs away from his body to hit me. And I think my game is very bad for someone who's trying to hit me. It plays well into people trying to strike because my whole thing is based on inside position. I keep my knees and hands inside the biceps. It's hard for people to be able to get inside position to actually hit me. And on top of that, I play an Ashigarami type game, which I don't know what this consensus is, that leg locks don't work in MMA.
That's some Vinny Megalace thing.
But everyone thinks that, like, oh, if you just get punched in the face if you use leg locks. An Ashigarami or X-guard type game is much easier to off-balance someone than, say, a closed guard, for example. Number one, they're worried about getting their leg broken, so they have to defend the heel.
Can you explain very quickly for the MMA fans watching what Ashigarami is? Just a basic idea.
Yeah, so it's basically my two legs controlling one or two of your legs. So anytime you try to hit me, I'm constantly off-balancing you, and I'm using one of my limbs to control your limbs and use it to off-balance and go into submissions.
So why do so many people get fucked up trying for leg locks in MMA?
Because they don't have efficient Ashigaramis. They don't play the position right. They just try to hold the static position, and they get punched in the face trying to leg lock people. They don't have active off balances side to side, back and forth.
So how do you deal with someone who, like Werdum, who does have a particular size advantage, right? I mean, whatever else you might say about him, he's got that.
Yeah. So he's definitely going to have a strength advantage, I would imagine. But the thing that I will have over him is a power to weight ratio. So he's going to have a strength advantage, but I'll have a power to weight ratio, and I'll be able to move a lot more than him and hopefully tire him out.
Do you roll with big guys like that?
Yeah, we have this guy Daryl who's he's in his mid-30s, I believe, could be older. I'm not really sure, but he played Division I college football. He's 6'6", 300 pounds, so he's perfect for him. We have Nick Rodriguez who wrestled D3 and is like 6'3", 240. So we have a good amount of big guys to train with at Henzo's.
Now, Barnett is going up against, I always mispronounce his name, Rustam Chisaev?
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Rustam?
It's pretty close. I don't know how to pronounce his last name either.
No one knows how to pronounce it.
But Rustam.
All right, Rustam.
There's only one Rustam, so it's pretty easy.
He does what? He's a big top control guy, right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting matchup because...
Two top control guys.
Yeah, because they're both top players, but Rustam will absolutely win the exchange on the feet, even though he's much smaller. Rustam is like a seriously credentialed wrestler. He's like a junior world champion, I'm pretty sure. So I think that Rustam actually takes Josh down, and I don't know if he submits him, but he definitely takes him down and controls him. And then in overtime is going to be interesting because in EBI 6, no one can control Rustam for any amount of time in overtime besides me.
He's that donk who's got a super hairy back and doesn't wear a rash guard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if Barnett can hold him in overtime. I think I'm actually going to give the win to Rustam via escape time in overtime.
Is it better for the tournament if both? I know Rustam has a background in wrestling, but for purposes of our conversation, Werdum and Barnett are MMA guys, and then you and Rustam are jiu-jitsu guys. Let's just say, is it better for the tournament if there's at least one UFC guy or MMA guy in the finals?
I think it'll definitely be. It'll be a bigger thing if I'm in the finals with Barnett.
The quintet rematch.
Yeah,
you know he wants that back.
Yeah, so he's definitely a bigger name, I would say, than Rustam. I mean, he's UFC heavyweight champion. So I definitely think it'll be a bigger match. But we'll see. I have my money on Rustam. Actually, people think that Barnett is like this guy who's incredibly good, which he is. But under this rule set, I think that Rustam can beat him during escape time.
How did you just? I mean, again, I have profound respect for Josh Barnett's abilities. How did you just go right through him like that?
I think so many people are just so afraid of him that they just play
for sure that
they play a kind of distant game where they don't really. I'm not sure if he's going to do some crazy kind of catch wrestling move that they've never seen before, so they're very cautious of engaging him. I was just like, this is just like any other dude. I'm just going to see how the match goes. So I just pulled guard, and he went over really easy, and I was like, oh, well, this is probably going to be an easy match. And then I passed his guard. And then he did a good job of trying to come up to an elbow, and he had to frame across my hips, but he had a hand posted on the floor, so there's a triangle there.
Was there not some crazy-ass catch wrestling guy?
Yeah, Curran Jacobs.
Who's calling all y'all out?
Yeah.
I think he called you out, didn't he?
Yeah, Curran Jacobs.
What happened there?
I don't know who this guy is. He's like a pretty legitimate wrestler. He wrestled at like Ohio State or Iowa State or something. One of those credentialed.
Like AJ Agazarm.
Yeah. Except for AJ didn't actually wrestle. He just sat on the bench at Ohio.
All right. Well.
But Curran did pretty well. And he's like a catch wrestling world champion apparently. So I challenged jiu-jitsu guys, like I wanted to do a takedown match essentially with jiu-jitsu guys under ADCC rules. So ADCC rules, are different than wrestling rules. So
Yep.
there's no, you can put a guy down, they turtle, there's no score. Where in wrestling, there's a score. So I wanted to put him, I wanted to do a takedown match with jiu-jitsu guys under that rule set. And then Curran Jacobs comes out of nowhere. He's like, I want to do this match, blah, 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 blah. We should have this match. And I'm like, okay, man, like, I'll have the match with you. Just get someone to get a promoter to organize it, get them to pay us, and we'll have the match.
Right.
He's like, okay. And then he like messaged me a few times. He said he was going to do it, and then I haven't heard from him since.
Weird.
So, I mean, I'll compete against anyone as long as I'm getting money for it. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm confident I'll beat anyone. If a blue belt wants to challenge me for $10,000, we'll have a $10,000 match. It doesn't really.
You're like Mayweather. Sure, I'll take on these challenges.
I just believe I'm that much better than everybody. Like I'm not afraid of losing to someone who's lesser than me because I just think that I'm going to submit everybody.
Who's the best no-gi grappler not named you? Vinny and didn't Felipe Pena give you some trouble too?
Yeah, I would say Felipe Pena.
Yeah.
He's good at everything, but he has one thing that he does better than almost anybody else in the world, and that's chasing the back. If there's one skill that you should be good at in jiu-jitsu, it's chasing the back. He has a way of getting to people's backs, which is not like many others. He takes the back from anywhere. So he's definitely up there. He's the only guy right now to have beat me twice without me beating him. So he beat me once 2.5 years ago maybe, and then once at the last ADCC a year and a half ago. So.
By the way, how did that quintet thing happen where it was like, here are the teams, and then someone got injured, like, and here's Gordon Ryan. I'm like, all of y'all are in trouble now. How did that happen?
So Dustin Akbari actually from
Team Alpha Male, right?
Team Alpha Male.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like always been a friend of mine, and
he's good too.
Yeah, he's very good. He was trying to get me on the team initially, but Uriah put like some other guy in charge of getting the team together. So the team was filled, but then one guy got hurt like a week before, and Dustin's like, we need to have Gordon. So they called me like a week before the event was going to happen, and like, do you want to do this for like Team Alpha Male? And I was like, yeah, I want to do it. So they flew us out, and the event happened.
And then you just smoked everybody. That was crazy.
That was the plan.
Now, you said that you would rather train MMA than in the gi, huh?
Yeah.
So what are you thinking for 2019? Gary's doing well over at 1.
Yeah, he's killing it. So, like I said, and I know people are going to hate on me for this, but I don't really care. It's my career. Gi is just not as exciting for me. I don't want to invest time in something that's not as fun as MMA, which is my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is always to be the best in MMA, not to be the best in grappling. So I'm basically just going to keep doing submission grappling matches. I have some big things coming up. I have the Joao Rocha match for Kasai. I have the Werdum match, and then I'm doing something in August, which is going to be enormous, but I can't announce it yet. And then
in jiu-jitsu.
In jiu-jitsu, yeah. And then ADCC in September. So I'm just going to keep training MMA, and whenever John thinks I'm ready to fight, I'm going to have my first fight. He doesn't want me to take my first match until I'm like on John Jones's level, he says. So hopefully it'll just take me 10 years to actually have a debut.
So where do you think you are relative to the John Jones level?
I'm terrible right now. Okay. I'm getting better, definitely. I feel like I can go in and beat like low-level guys for sure.
Because Gary barely uses, he uses his jiu-jitsu, but his striking looks pretty good.
Yeah. I feel like I can go out and I feel like I can beat mid-level guys, but I don't want to beat mid-level guys. I want to beat like world champion, level athletes. So I've only been doing it for 2 months, like seriously, but I feel like I'm getting there and getting better every day. Striking is coming along. Shoot boxing coming along, so it's just trying to learn something new every day.
Jesus Christ, man, you got a lot going on. You know what the only thing about your beefs is? As an observer, it's like fun for me. Because every time it's like, I look at the top of my Instagram, I'm like, he's got another story up.
It's always something.
It's always something. So right now it's Galvan for $300K. Doesn't sound like it's going to happen.
No, it's Galvan for charity.
For charity.
It's Galvan
well,
for
it was
charity.
initially for money.
It was initially for money because he said, the crown is mine and I am the real king. And that's just like a passive-aggressive way to be like, yeah, fuck Gordon.
Oh, I see.
So I was like, listen.
Because you're king, right?
Yeah. So I was like, listen, like put up $50,000 of your own money and I'll put up $50,000 and the winner will take $100,000. And he's like, oh, I'm a millionaire. I don't need the money, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, listen, we could do 100K. That's like way more than you've ever been paid for a grappling match. And if you beat me, you get 100K. And he's like, I'm a millionaire. I don't need the money, blah, 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 all this. Like beating you won't add to my legacy. I'm like, well, it will, but okay, fine. So then I was like, listen, if you don't want to do that, like if you don't care about the money really doesn't matter to you, and you think that beating me won't do anything for your legacy, let's do it for charity. Let's donate it to a charity. We'll sell pay-per-views for like $25, $30, and whoever watches will take all that revenue and we'll give it to charity or give it to building a school near your hometown in Brazil, building a children's hospital, something like that. And yeah, just no response.
Yeah, and then you have this new one with Caio. Is it Terra or Teja?
Terra.
I can never tell with these Brazilian names. I don't speak Portuguese.
Don't worry, me neither.
All right. He was bitter at you about the not leg weave pass, but
leg pommeling.
Leg pommeling, yes. And so this, I got to tell you, seems like insider baseball a little bit here.
So I was like, yeah, I was like.
It's a little hard to follow all these beefs, man.
I know. I just did a instructional BJJ Fanatics.
I saw with Bernardo Faria.
Yeah, with Bernardo Faria.
He's a great guy.
And yeah, he is. And he was like posting, he made a post about the passing, trying to promote it.
Oh, like he's been doing this forever or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He's like this is like a new guard passing system that Gordon invented. And Kyle Terra comes on. He's like, LOL. He didn't invent leg pommeling. I've been doing this for years. I have competition footage of this. And I'm just like, okay, like obviously I didn't invent leg pommeling. So then, like, I just went off on him, and I was like, you don't have a system of anything besides whining about everything and being a little dwarf. So I just like attacked him online, and I've just been attacking him ever since because he started it. And then he like challenged me to a match, and then I was like, okay, let's have the match. Then he's like, no, I don't want to have the match. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I'm pretty much over now. I told him I would compete against him for $250,000, which he agreed to, and then I direct messaged him, and he's like, I'm not doing that. And I told him I would let him start in a fully extended armbar during the match.
I saw that, yeah.
And he's like, let's do it in the gi. I was like, okay, $250,000, 10 minutes, IBJJF rules, and you can start in a fully extended armbar. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, dude, I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, you know what you're like? Have you ever seen that? Do you know Deontay Wilder? He just fought Tyson Fury. You ever seen that fan who was trolling him, and he invited the motherfucker up to the gym?
No, I didn't.
And then just destroyed him. They had to
really?
hold him back. You're like the guy who shows up to the gym, only you beat Deontay Wilder.
That's the guy I'm trying to be.
You know, it's amazing because you're willing to just be like, okay, let's do it. Let's put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, I just want to compete against the best guys. That's so hard. Everyone's like, you don't deserve a shot. I'm like, I won everything. What are you guys talking about?
You're going to be perfect for MMA, dude. Because I love Gary. I've interviewed him a number of times. He's a super smart, kind guy. Obviously, he's been a great mentor for you. But, you know, in this modern era of MMA, I'm not saying he's not a shit talker. You might know him better than me. But this thing you're doing, as you move to MMA, you know as well as I do, the people who love you are going to love everything you do.
Yeah.
And your haters are can't wait to see you get knocked out. Not saying it's going to happen, but that's what they're going to be hoping for.
Of course.
And this antagonism will do you quite well in mixed martial arts, my friend. I've been in this game a while. I've never seen anyone quite like you in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I just got to get better at like shit talking like on the spot. Like I'm pretty good over the internet because I can like think about things and like look up stuff, but like on the spot I have to like practice it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I can't wait. So February 22nd, it's going to be in LA, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be in Mexico.
And it was a pay-per-view. Now it's going to be on Fight Pass.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, one of the most exciting guys in all of grappling, either on Instagram or not on Instagram. I can't wait. So it's you versus Werdum, Barnett, and then all the winners meet, yeah?
Yeah, so me versus Werdum, and then the winner of Barnett versus Rustam.
If folks want more of your social media antagonism, where do they get it?
So on Facebook, it's Gordon Ryan, and on Instagram, it's Gordon Loves Jiu-Jitsu.
Gordon Loves Jiu-Jitsu. By the way, your brother's very good too, right?
Yes.
Is he black belt yet?
No, he's a purple belt. You can't get a brown belt until 18, and a black belt until 19. He's only 17.
Well, let's be real.
But
he's kind of a black belt.
He's black belt level for sure.
Is he going to be better than you?
I don't know. That's why I'm trying to like get out of submission grappling and like go into MMA before he gets really good. But he should be. The generation after me should always be better. But yeah, he's like a little freak. I hate training with him. It's miserable.
He's amazing to watch. Nicky Ryan's a great guy.